"Your sister needs peace tonight, Layla. We canceled your birthday." My mother said it casually, like she was canceling a dentist appointment, not my 18th birthday, not the one night I'd waited years for. I stood there in the half-lit backyard decorations, still swaying in the warm Arizona breeze, chocolate chip cookies cooling on the table I'd set myself. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just blew out the unlit candles one by one and felt something inside me shift quiet, sharp, final. They thought my silence meant surrender. They never imagined it was the start of everything that would unravel next. My name is Layla, and if you'd met my family from the outside, you might have thought we were one of those quiet, stable households people envy. The kind with neat hedges, warm porch lights, and framed vacation photos lining the hallway. And in a way, that illusion was the point. My parents worked hard to keep everything looking perfect, at least where other people could see. Inside, though, I learned early that perfection had a price, and I was usually the one paying it. Growing up with Miranda meant learning to step aside before I even realized what stepping aside meant. She was 5 years older, louder, and according to my mother, more sensitive. Sensitive was always the word. Sensitive when she didn't like the color of her room. Sensitive when she refused to eat what everyone else was having. Sensitive when she slammed doors hard enough to rattle the walls. Whenever she spiraled, the whole house reshaped itself around her moods. And I, quiet, adaptable, stronger than she is, as Mom liked to say, was expected to understand. Just let her have it, Layla. You're good at sharing. Those words followed me through childhood like a shadow. I don't think my parents ever meant to teach me invisibility, but intentions don't erase impact. Miranda got the new clothes. I got her still perfectly good hand-me-downs. She picked the TV shows. I watched whatever was left. She got the bigger bedroom. I got the one Mom said had better morning light, as if sunlight compensated for always feeling second. Still, I tried not to resent any of it. I truly did. I told myself every family had its imbalances, and as long as I stayed patient, things might even out one day. And for a long time, that belief kept me steady. But turning 18 felt like a milestone, a moment that belonged to me. My parents had even suggested throwing a backyard celebration, something small but meaningful. I helped shop for decorations, arranged the lights-baked cookies using a recipe my grandmother once taught me. For the first time, it felt like the spotlight might shift even briefly. Maybe that's why the emptiness stung so sharply, the untouched plates, the quiet phone, the sunset sinking behind our fence while I waited for people who would never arrive. Because the truth hit me long before Mom said the words out loud. In this family, even my 18th birthday couldn't belong to me. By the time the sky turned fully dark, the backyard felt like a stage after the actors had abandoned the play. The streamers fluttered in the warm air, the lights buzzed gently overhead, and every part of me tried to make sense of the silence. I kept checking my phone, refreshing my messages, convincing myself there had to be a traffic delay or a mix-up with the time. Anything but this. But nothing came. At 9 o'clock, the quiet became too loud to stand, so I finally walked inside. My parents were curled up on the couch, the TV casting a pale glow across their faces. They didn't look startled when they saw me, just mildly annoyed, like I'd interrupted something important. "Where is everyone?" I asked, my voice thinner than I meant it to be. Daniel didn't look up from the remote. "We canceled the party, Layla. You know how delicate Miranda is right now." I stared at them, waiting for a punchline that didn't come. "You canceled my 18th birthday. Because Miranda's upset she couldn't go on her trip." Elise sighed the way she always did when she thought I was being unreasonable. "She's been crying for 2 days. You know how hard this week has been on her. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. She's 23. I'm the one turning 18. Before either of them could answer, footsteps echoed from the stairs. Miranda appeared wrapped in a satin robe, her hair perfectly brushed despite her supposed meltdown. She leaned against the railing like she was gracing us with her presence. "What's with the yelling?" she asked, her voice dripping boredom. "You're stressing me out." Something inside me snapped, not loud, not explosive, but sharp. "You canceled my birthday for her tantrum," I said, pointing at her. Miranda blinked slowly, then smirked. "If I can't have fun today, neither should you. It's just basic empathy." Empathy. The word landed like a slap. For years, I'd been told to empathize with her moods, her wants, her crises, but she'd never once been asked to empathize with mine. I'm done, I whispered more to myself than to them. The room fell silent for a beat long enough for everyone to feel the shift. Then the doorbell rang. We all froze. Elise's face paled and Daniel finally muted the TV. Miranda rolled her eyes, clearly annoyed by yet another disruption to her comfort. But when the door opened and I saw who was standing there, my grandfather, Edward Stern Steady, taking in the scene with one sweeping look, I knew the night was about to change direction. And for the first time, I hoped it would. Edward didn't even step inside at first. He stood in the doorway, tall and composed, scanning each of our faces like he already knew he'd walked into a disaster. His eyes landed on Miranda's robe, Daniel's muted TV screen, the untouched decorations still visible through the sliding glass door. "What's going on here?" he asked, voice low but sharp enough to cut through the air. No one answered, so he looked at me. I didn't try to hide the redness around my eyes or the way my hands trembled slightly. For once, I didn't feel the urge to protect the family image. "They canceled my birthday," I said quietly, because Miranda was upset. Edward's expression darkened, not dramatic, not loud, just a tightening around his jaw that meant more than shouting ever could. He stepped inside, then closing the door with a controlled click. "Is that true?" he asked Daniel. My father swallowed hard. It was complicated. "It wasn't complicated," I said. "They lied to everyone, told them I was sick so no one would show up." Elise flinched. Miranda scoffed. Edward turned to them again. "You canceled her 18th birthday for a tantrum." Miranda bristled. "I wasn't having a tantrum. My trip was ruined. I was overwhelmed." Edward stared at her with the kind of silence that makes people shrink. "You're 23, he said flatly, "and she's 18. Then he looked at my parents. "And you catered to that?" The room was so quiet I could hear the ceiling fan ticking. Daniel finally cracked. "Edward, you don't understand how sensitive she gets. We were trying to avoid a bigger problem." Edward let out a breath, slow, disappointed. "I've supported this family for years," he said, his tone even, but unwavering. "And I thought I was helping you raise 2 daughters with fairness and dignity, but what I'm seeing tonight—" "That's not dignity." Elise looked startled. "You've supported Edward, please." He cut her off with one lifted hand. Then he turned to me again, his voice softening in a way it never had for anyone else in this house. "Layla, do you want to leave with me?" The question hit deeper than I expected. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because no one had ever given me a choice before. "Yes," I said, not loud, not shaking, just certain. I saw it then, the moment something cracked behind Elise's eyes. Not fear of losing me, fear of what my leaving meant for them. Edward nodded once. "Go pack, sweetheart." And for the first time in 18 years, I walked upstairs without looking back. I packed faster than I ever had in my life. Not because I was afraid someone would stop me, but because for the first time the weight in my chest felt like it was lifting. Each folded shirt, each book I tucked into my bag, each quiet click of a zipper felt like reclaiming something I didn't even know I'd lost. My room had always felt temporary, like a place I borrowed, not a place I belonged. But now, walking out of it with everything that was mine, it finally made sense why. When I came downstairs with my suitcase, the air was tight enough to touch. Elise stood near the kitchen island, arms crossed, her face crumbling between disbelief and insult. Daniel hovered behind the couch, looking helpless. Miranda sat on the bottom stair, legs crossed, staring at her nails like the whole night inconvenienced her. Edward stood by the front door waiting for me like he had been doing it my whole life. "Ready?" he asked. I nodded, but before we could leave, Elise stepped forward. "Layla, sweetheart, don't be impulsive. Your sister didn't mean to hurt you. We can fix this. We can plan another celebration." "You canceled the one I had," I said, not raising my voice. "And you didn't even tell me." "It was a misunderstanding," Daniel added. "No," I replied. "It was a pattern." That shut him up. Miranda let out a dramatic huff. "Oh my God, Layla, stop acting like a martyr." It was just a birthday. People cancel things all the time. I turned to her slowly. You're right. People do cancel things. But only in this house does one daughter have to disappear for the other to feel okay. She rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. Edward stepped closer. Enough! Everyone paused. He wasn't loud. He wasn't angry. But the authority in his voice rearranged the room. I'll say this once Edward told my parents. You've treated Layla like an afterthought for years, and tonight proved it. I won't be part of it anymore. Daniel's face went pale. Elise's lips parted ready to plead. Edward. No, he said simply. This isn't a negotiation. He motioned toward the door, and I followed him outside. The night air felt cooler than it had before, softer against my skin, like the world itself was opening a new door, but it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because the next morning, my phone started buzzing nonstop. At first, it was Elise, please come home so we can talk. We didn't mean for things to get so emotional. Then Daniel. Your mom and I want to apologize. Miranda is very fragile right now. We were trying to manage everything the best we could. Fragile. Of course. Then Miranda, predictably, you're ruining the whole family over a party. Grow up, Layla. I didn't respond to any of them. Edward made me breakfast eggs toast a bowl of fruit he cut himself. Everything felt calm, steady. A life that made sense. A life that didn't revolve around someone's tantrums. You're safe here, he said, for as long as you need. For a week, I lived in peace. No yelling, no walking on eggshells. Caleb walked me home from school every day, checking in without questions. Edward helped me look at colleges and scholarships, proud of every step I took. But my parents didn't stop. They escalated. We miss you. We want to fix things. You belong home. Then finally, if you want to return, tell us what you need from us. So I did. I sent them one message: Miranda needs to move out. Permanently. It wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. If they chose her again, even when it meant losing me, then I'd finally have my answer. Daniel responded first. We can discuss it. Then Elise. We just want our family whole again. But Miranda? She sent nothing. And then 2 days of silence. On the third day, while I walked with Caleb from school, a silver car idled near the curb. My stomach dropped as soon as I saw who was leaning against it, Miranda. She pushed off the hood the moment she spotted me. We need to talk. Not without him, I said, nodding toward Caleb. She sneered at him. I'm not talking to your guard dog. Then you're not talking to me, I replied. Her jaw tightened. You're destroying Mom and Dad. They're a mess. They haven't slept. They're terrified Edward's going to cut them off. I stopped walking, terrified of losing money, not terrified of losing me. You're twisting things. No, I'm telling the truth. That's when she completely snapped. She lunged at me, grabbing my wrist. Caleb stepped between us, instantly pulling her off me with ease. Walk away, he told her. But Miranda, in perfect Miranda fashion, escalated instead. You think you're better than me now, living with Grandpa. You're nothing without this family. I was nothing in this family, I said. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. But I did lift my hand and give her one clear warning. If you touch me again, I will call the police. Her eyes widened, not from fear, but from disbelief that someone finally told her no. She didn't follow us after that, because she knew that line wasn't moving. That night, I told Edward everything. He wanted to call the police immediately, but I shook my head. She got the message, I said. That's enough. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. I'm proud of you. 2 days later, my parents finally responded to my ultimatum, and their message told me everything. We've decided Miranda will continue living with us. You've shown us you can't be trusted. You're manipulative, jealous, and ungrateful. We only wanted you back to help repair things with Edward, but we'll manage without you. The words didn't hurt. They confirmed what I'd known for years, so I blocked them. And for the first time in my life, the silence felt like freedom. Miranda tried to post something online about toxic siblings, but it backfired instantly. Everyone knew the truth by then. Every cousin, every aunt, Every person who used to fill our house with holiday chatter, they all drifted away from my parents. The image of a perfect family didn't survive 2 weeks without me holding up my corner of it. The fall was slow, then sudden. Daniel's accounting office lost clients. Elise pulled away from her friends. Miranda eventually moved out, not by choice, but because the house was shrinking under all the tension. And I watched it all from a distance. Quietly. Without interference. Without satisfaction, or maybe with a kind that didn't need a spotlight. Because I didn't destroy their life. I simply stepped out of the space they kept me trapped in. And the emptiness revealed what had been cracking long before I ever left. Life at Edward's house settled into a rhythm so gentle it almost felt unreal. Mornings were quiet sunlight slipping through the kitchen windows, the smell of fresh coffee, the soft scrape of Edward's newspaper against the table. No slammed doors, no whispered arguments behind walls, no walking on eggshells bracing for someone else's mood. For the first time, my days belonged to me. I focused on school, on applications, on the future I'd never been allowed to imagine. When my acceptance letter came from a university in northern Arizona, Edward hugged me like I'd given him a second life. "You earned this," he said, "every bit of it." Caleb drove me to tour the campus one weekend, and the drive felt strangely symbolic open road pine trees, no detours back into old pain. We weren't rushing anything, but being around him made everything feel lighter, steadier. Someone who didn't expect me to shrink, so others could breathe. Meanwhile, news about my parents reached me in small fragments through relatives who still spoke to Edward, through friends who'd seen Miranda moving boxes into a tiny apartment across town. The perfect picture they'd spent years curating had finally cracked beyond repair. They weren't ruined, not in a dramatic way, just unraveling. Quietly, naturally. Exactly how I had left. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't post about it. I didn't send a single "I told you so." That wasn't the point. Watching from afar, I realized something simple and surprising. I didn't want revenge anymore. I just wanted peace. And I had it. One evening, sitting on Edward's back patio, I looked at the mountain line glowing under the setting sun and felt something loosen inside me, a final thread snapping free. Leaving hadn't broken me. It had rebuilt me. If there's one thing I learned, it's this. Sometimes the loudest decision you'll ever make is walking away. My parents thought my silence meant surrender, but it became the only boundary they couldn't twist or ignore. And once I stepped out of their shadow, my life finally began to feel like mine, steady, simple, real. If any part of my story feels familiar to you, know this. You're not dramatic, you're not ungrateful, and you're not alone. Share your story in the comments. And if you want more, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one.